scheduled to be here this month, but it got changed, and he had something come up. So I first heard of him several years ago, and I wish I could remember when it was. I heard of, I don't know if you're familiar with the Mountain Riders group in Portland, and I've been to some of their programs, and one of them was held at Concordia, and it was he and Paul N. Peterson, and maybe there was another person. I just don't remember the details, but I know that he and Paul N. were there. And he did a presentation about his book, which must not have been out too long. It's called Help Is on the Way, which there is one copy of it. This one's mine. There's one copy over there of Help Is on the Way. And he talked about what that was. He's a very, very interesting fellow. Most of his life has been in, I don't know what he would call it, but when I read it, I called it sort of straight up academics. He taught at universities and all over the, let me get his little bio here. He taught at universities. His two books that are published, not the anthology, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but the two books of poetry he's published is called Sea of Faith, which I do not have, but I have the poem, and Help Is on the Way, which is the one over here. And he did the anthology, the one that we're going to talk about. But he's taught all over, and he's been in The Sun, he's published in The Sun, and the Southern Review, and a whole bunch of magazines, but he also is, and he's taught up at PSU, as well as some other places. So he lives in the Portland area, I'm not sure where, but in that area. And Help Is on the Way, I thought was an amazing book, because, and he will probably talk a lot about that. It is an amazing, have any of you read it or seen it? It is about half of it, maybe a little more, is the story of his, but it's poetry, his assisting his nephew, who is a poet and had a lot of challenges in life and was in Kyoto. And he and his nephew both loved the same poet, the same Japanese poet. And his nephew, John gets a call one day, and his nephew needs a kidney transplant immediately, or is it liver transplant? One of the two, immediately. I guess it's a kidney transplant, immediately. And John is the only match. And so he goes to Japan to do that. And it's the story of what happens, and his healing, and his nephew, and his, maybe, I'll say this, he might not use this word, but I would say an awakening, perhaps. He might not use that word, but I'll say that loosely. And so this book, which is his anthology, the poet, and even if you don't buy the book, it's worth looking at this cover. This cover is absolutely fantastic. There's this really cute elephant who's tattooed with all kinds of interesting tattoos, and he's balancing on a bunch of broken teacups. It's a great picture. It's an improbable, impossible thing of this sort of balancing that could go on. But it's called The Poetry of Impermanence, Mindfulness, and Joy. From Basho to Billy Collins, Saigyo to Shakespeare. And when I first got the book, I was like, what's impermanence? And I realized he's on a journey, and he's going to take us on a journey with him. And it's an anthology of all these wonderful poets. Many of you know many of them. And so I picked out just a few to read to you. The first one is in the impermanence section. Just think about that word, what it might mean. Impermanence, is that scary, or is it what? And it's caused me to rethink my understanding of what that word might mean. So this is by Matsuo Basho in 1644 to 1694. I'm kind of short. Summer grasses all that remains of warrior's dreams. And there are lots of poets from all over the world, but I thought that this one, I'm going to read it again only because it's so short. It is impermanent and it goes by really fast. Summer grasses, all that remains of warrior's dreams. And there are so many amazing poems in here. Neruda, Ellen Bass, and much more. So I'm going to actually read you a poem from the Mindfulness section, the second section, which he takes in the anthology, in all the poems, he takes the reader or the person appreciating the poetry through a journey of movement, of continuous movement. And so in the Mindfulness section, the second section of the book, here's a poem by Dick Allen, Listening Deeply. Listening deeply, sometimes in another, you can hear the sound of a hermit sighing as he climbs a mountain trail to reach a waterfall, or a Buddhist nun reciting prayers while moonlight falls through the window onto an old clay floor. And once in a while, a child rolling a hoop through the alleyway of Tokyo laughing, or a farmer pausing in a rice field to watch the geese fly. The thoughts on his lips, he just doesn't think to say. And on the, I hadn't planned this, but I can do this, it's so short. On the opposite page is a William Stafford poem. His poetry, the way he did his anthology, the poems flow. And I'm sure when he comes, he's going to talk about, I don't know he will, but if he doesn't, he should. Okay, this is by William Stafford, Listening. My father could hear a little animal step or a moth in the dark against the screen. And every far sound called the listening out into places where the rest of us had never been. More spoke to him from the soft, wild night than came to our porch for us on the wind. We would watch him look up, his face go keen, till the walls of the world flared and widened. My father heard so much that we still stand, inviting the quiet by turning the face, waiting for a time when something in the night will touch us too from that other place. And coincidentally, I forgot this, the poem that I selected from the Joy section, which has tons of absolutely spectacular, my favorite one here is kind of long. It's called Ode to My Socks by Pablo Neruda, but it's kind of long. So I'm going to go to a shorter one. It's wonderful too. But this is a William Stafford poem. It's called Ask Me. And I actually pulled a copy of the Ask Me book off the shelf over there, which is a really wonderful William Stafford book if you've never had that or read that. Ask me. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me whether what I have done is my life. Others have come in their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there, hidden, and there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. What the river says, that's what I say. She knows the poem. She knew the lines. She was taking them because it's so beautiful. They're just okay. So here's another short poem. Actually, my last name is Padgett. As far as I know, I'm not related to Ron Padgett, the poet, but It would be nice if I was. So there's something about shoes in this book, and joy, I'm not sure what. This is called The Inaction of Shoes by Ron Padgett. There are many things to be done today, and it's a lovely day to do them in. Each thing a joy to do, and a joy to have done. I can tell because of the calm I feel when I think about doing them. I can almost hear those things saying to me, "Thank you for doing us." And when evening comes, I'll remove my shoes and place them on the floor and think how good they look, sitting, standing, there, not doing anything. So I highly recommend this book. Just one copy over there. It's really a beautiful book. I've kind of in my life avoided anthologies, not exactly, but I could see how you could really make a beautiful anthology. He found a thing in his life, and kind of the hook from it was his experience in Kyoto with his nephew, and then in that process was already pulling some of this together. So it's a beautiful anthology with some amazing poets in it and some great ideas. So thank you. And if I didn't introduce you myself, he already did a little bit. I'm Cathie Padgett. I'm last year and a half ago retired teacher librarian and trying to figure out what I'm doing in life. I spend a lot of time out of state doing family things, but I live in Vancouver and happy to be here in the drear. Love the drear.